Hi everyone. Today we're here with Ahmad Hamwh. He's currently working in Rockstar North, game developer, and we're gonna talk to him about his journey, how he got there, for you to have more insight about how to get to work with like gaming companies. So
Yeah.
tell us about yourself,
So
like
my
a
name is
small
Ahmed.
introduction, yeah.
Yeah. My name is Ahmed. I was born in Kuwait. I grew up with video games and anime, like everyone here. And yeah, I mean, it inspired me to become a game developer.
Okay, nice. When did you start getting into game development?
Yeah. So I didn't know how video games were made, and I kind of wanted to. I just looked it up and realized that there were three components. Two components I understood, the art and the audio, and one I had no idea about, which was the programming. And that's what got me into programming. So once I learned that programming was a thing, I decided to teach myself programming. At the time, I was 14, and I found a free book online that I read on my PSP. And yeah, that was how I learned programming.
That's incredible, VSP.
It was an amazing machine. Yeah.
Yeah. And how did you get the battery to last?
Oh, I had to keep it charged the entire
Okay,
time,
okay.
and had to keep like zooming in and out using that weird analog stick they had.
Yeah. Well, well,
Yeah.
thanks to PSP,
Yep.
you're now a programmer. When did when did you start studying in school the programming aspect of
So
things?
school, middle school, high school, I didn't learn programming there. It was all the way up to university that I was taught programming in like an educational institute. And by then, I had already been programming for a few years. I mean, I started with C++, so I already kind of had a good grasp of the high-level languages. And when I got to university, AUK had computer science, and I decided to go into that just because I wanted to make games.
That's amazing. What do you think is like the biggest misconception about programming that people has?
That you need someone to teach you programming.
Oh,
Probably.
yeah.
You really don't need anyone to teach you programming. Or you don't even need to be good at maths. You don't need to be good at science or any of it. You can just get into it.
Yeah, but
And
isn't it technically calculus?
it can be, but a lot of times you don't have to deal with that. A lot of times you can
No,
be
I mean
programming.
logic wise.
It it really depends on what you want to do with programming, right? Like sometimes
Sure.
you're piecing logic together, other times you're just programming front end, and it depends on what you like. So it all comes down to what you specialize in, which I think that gets informed by what you're interested in.
Yes. Oh, okay, that's actually a great point. Uh, when people think, oh, game development, they think, oh, one person can do the whole game. We've seen a lot of like indie developers that make like their own game, like it's only one person.
Yeah.
But actually, it takes more of a village to develop a
Yes.
game. So, how do you choose how to specialize in a field of game of development?
So for me, when I first started working with games, I was uh, I was interested in the areas I thought were really the core parts of the game. I
Which
wasn't
are
interested in like the UI or anything around the game. I was interested in like doing the AI, the combat,
the
doing like
mechanism, basically.
yeah
Okay.
core systems of the game. But that was a complete misconception. I thought that that was the core part of the game, but a game is not complete till everything is in, right?
Exactly.
A game with fantastic combat but no graphics or bad input is still going to be a bad game.
True.
So when I first started, there wasn't much of a choice really. I was kind of coding everything. In university, it was mostly very, very small projects. I was coding just about every system I could and using whatever I can. But there are a lot of like off-the-shelf components you can
Yeah.
get. whether it's Unity or Unreal or custom engines, whatever it is, there are a lot of components you can just grab, that people have. It can be art, audio, and like programming packages. They allow you to program by dragging and dropping little logical pieces, and that's totally fine. Like Unreal has blueprints. Unity, I forgot the system that they have, but they added one. And as long as it works for you,
they're called assets, weren't they?
there's
Like you can just download like the code you need, or like the what's it called, the animation you need, and
so
just add
that
it to
that
your
would be
game.
from the asset store, but there's like a graph. What do you call it?
The flowchart of how the system works.
And Unity has a system where you can program using just that. So it's just graphical programming. You don't need to get into the code and type anything. And that seems to ease the transition for a lot of people.
Definitely.
Especially if they're more interested in art or audio, for them to kind of be able to code up small things to help them achieve whatever they want.
Because it only deals with the logic of how you want the game to work, and it would code it for you, basically.
It simplifies things from a syntax perspective, because a lot of new programmers get lost in the syntax of code.
Exactly.
And
choosing what like, because you can use more than just C++, right?
Yeah,
Unity?
of course. You can use more than just C#. They had JavaScript.
Yeah, they had like 3 languages or something like that. You can use like simultaneously.
Now Unity also has a markup language for their UI, a styling, like style sheets, like CSS for UI as well. But in general, they still use C#. You can kind of interop with other languages if you want. But Unity is pretty locked down. If you I mean, the C# that they use is also not the C# you would use in other places. It's very tied down to Unity with mono behaviors and scriptable objects.
Because they have like I think what are they called? The internal scripts. Like sometimes you name something and it's already there, so you have to name it in a different way for them, for the program to understand it.
I'm not sure how they invoke those Unity messages, like awake, start, update, but I think it's using a lot of reflection code. In Unity you can't call constructors on mono behaviors. You can't implement constructors on mono behaviors because that breaks everything. For them, you need to have they need to maintain an internal C++ representation that is tied to your C# representation, and they have to kind of keep that one-to-one mapping, making sure to free up memory when things are no longer needed. So it's a pretty complicated system under the hood, just for you to be able to use C# instead of C++. Which
is why you need their graph system. It would be much easier for like newcomers.
Exactly. I guess with programming, the focus shouldn't be on the syntax, but you need to learn the syntax in order to be able to write complex logic. It's similar to spoken languages. بالعربي or in English, you need to learn how to use the language before you can start forming complex ideas.
Exactly.
That doesn't mean that you can't form those complex ideas in your head without the language. It's just to express it in that language, you need to learn the syntax. So for newcomers, it's 2 challenges. One is getting used to the way you form logical ideas that work with a computer, and the other is learning a syntax, any programming language, to deliver those complex ideas to the computer.
Yeah, exactly. That's a very good point. Okay, so we talked about the syntax of like the how the programming works, and you mentioned something really important, which is the logic behind it. I believe that like 90% of programming is the logic rather than the syntax. Because once you get the syntax, like once you have the logic, you can program anything in any language. However, you just need to like tweak it to the syntax that.
Absolutely.
Basically,
I mean, of course, there will be some limitations. يعني مو كل كلمة بالعربي ممكن الواحد يترجمها to English or to Japanese. And the same applies usually for like Japanese or some Chinese languages, you can't translate everything to
Exactly.
Arabic. You can come close to it, but it's still not a one-to-one mapping. And it's the same with programming languages. You can come close to getting the same functionality, but it's not going to be a one-to-one mapping, right? For C-based languages, C, C++, C Sharp, Java, they all pretty much have the same concepts. You can express everything everywhere. I mean, C doesn't have.
But still, there's syntax differences.
Yeah.
Like sometimes, like with the letter, like if you do it like what's it called, capital letter, small letter, that would like break the code.
Absolutely, yes.
Definitely.
So the way I learned C Sharp, so at first I learned Java in university. Before that it was C++ on my own, so it was C++ and then Java. Java felt like a subset of C++ because C++ allows you to manipulate pointers. It's not a garbage collected language. It's not a memory managed language. So you have to manage your own memory, and it's kind of like Java and C Sharp with added complexity. When I learned Java in university, it didn't really get very deep into it, so it felt to me like C++, but a little less. And then C Sharp was just me opening up Unity in university to create a project to play around with Unity. We had like a small project. It was like, yeah, make a project, anything. And I decided to make a video game. Unity was there. They had just introduced the 2D tools.
Nice.
And I started typing Java code into Visual Studio. Most of it built fine. The IDE started complaining about the other bits, and the messages were kind of easy to understand. I wasn't writing very complex code, so it was just classes, fields, methods, all of that. So that's how I kind of got into C Sharp. I actually never read like books cover to cover on C Sharp. It was
But
just
that's amazing because C Sharp is kind of like C++. Like there's only minor differences.
yeah. C Sharp is a managed language, so it has garbage collection. You don't need to manage your own memory. C++ has, I mean, C Sharp also has pointers. It has areas of code where you don't need to manage memory, but most people avoid it. Most of the times you don't need it. C Sharp is also becoming very popular now. Microsoft integrates the .NET libraries with
C
using
Sharp.
C Sharp,
Yeah,
F
Visual
Sharp.
Basic actually. Yeah.
And the .NET libraries have a lot of new concepts in programming that kind of encapsulate ideas that make it easier to I guess, execute concepts we've had a long time ago that were always difficult, like multi-threaded programming. .NET and Microsoft innovated the async await pattern, and that really helps with multi-threaded programming. It just helps you reason about it, because multi-threaded programming is exceptionally difficult to reason about. Just multiple things running at the same time,
Exactly.
trying to figure out which one is going to finish first, right? Resolving results and things like that. So the pattern they came up with just kind of makes it easier for you to wrap your head around it, to track bugs. Issues with the code are much easier to kind of log and debug. That's why, like, C Sharp, even though C++ is what C Sharp is somewhat based on, you find that C Sharp is innovating beyond C++ now, because C++ is a very old language at this point. I think it started in the 1970s. It already had a lot of phases that it went through. Every time something was popular, C++ would have it, C++ would add it, and C++ became very bloated very quickly. Newer languages tend to be more lightweight. In terms of the features they have, how you can get started, you already know everything you need to do. C++ is famous for having very different looking code depending on who's programming in C++. If it's an old school programmer, their code is going to be very raw. If it's someone who's just learning C++ now, they're going to be using all the new bells and whistles, and their code is going to look very, very different from someone who's been using C++ for 30, 40 years.
There's another language that's Python. I don't see it's used a lot in gaming, but it's like essential to everything else. And like,
Yeah.
why do you think that is?
I don't like Python.
Ah,
But maybe it's because I've been programming for a while and I became one of those old people that's like, those kids nowadays, they have everything done for them. But Python is used in AI, in automation tasks. Python is really easy to pick up by people who have not studied programming for a very long time. So, or at least that's my experience. A lot of the people I talk to who did not study computer science, I've spoken to accountants who were just like, yeah, it's easy for me to write things in Python, and it's just to automate whatever I need. A lot of APIs will allow you to interface with them using Python. Websites and services will just be like, yeah, you can write a Python script and run it and do whatever you want. Python to me is very different from the C-based languages. I don't think anyone would write a full application in Python. It's mostly just writing scripts to do something.
so they use it like JavaScript,
Yeah.
basically. Okay.
Yeah. You can still write a full application, obviously, but
Yeah.
no one would like to do that. Just because other languages are meant to be used for writing full applications, right? So languages like Python, they're, I mean, they're useful. Obviously, they're used everywhere in AI, machine learning, right? And mostly they're used to organize the data that eventually gets sent to the AI cores that process everything. They're just easier to use to kind of collate that data, to organize it, to kind of put it together in a form that the GPU will understand. So companies like NVIDIA, who have GPUs that run all of the AI libraries for running machine learning algorithms, they allow you to interface with Python, and they maintain Python libraries for using that data, for organizing that data to be used by their GPUs.
Okay, that's interesting. Let's say now someone have learned all the languages and wants to get into game development, but isn't sure like what engine to use to start their game development journey.
I would say it does not matter one bit. If you're comfortable with an engine that everyone says is crap, you're comfortable with it, use it. The most difficult thing in game development is finishing the game, is doing something and finishing it. I've started so many projects and I never finish them. And it's because
What's the reason? Like why?
it's just very difficult because you start with an idea that you think is very creative and cool, but then seeing that through, building everything from the foundation all the way to the tiniest details, making sure everything is tweaked perfectly is extremely difficult. Having an idea and going, yeah, I'm going to put it down is one thing, and trying to make it into a product, not necessarily to sell it, but for people to enjoy it, is a whole other journey, is a whole other task. So for me, the choosing an engine doesn't matter too much as long as you're comfortable with the engine that you choose. With that said, I mean, we don't have a lot of options really. We have Unreal, we have Unity, and we have Godot. So Unity is probably the most friendly for newcomers, and it's mainly because of all the tutorials that they have, the communities, the forums. There's so many people that know Unity and are willing to help. Every question has been asked and answered. It's the most friendly for you to kind of understand how the engine works. Unreal is fantastic, obviously, for graphics and performance, and is used by AAA studios. But Unreal, although Unreal has been picking up some slack from its early days and is trying to be more friendly for newcomers, I don't think it's there yet. I think Unity is still king right now, especially when it comes to newcomers.
Yeah. Let's say now you've picked engine, and then you want to form your team to start your video game.
Yep.
How do you decide which area you can concentrate on or like focus on, and then give it to like other people? Like, how do you choose your field in game, because like there's so many things to do in a video game. It's not just one thing. Like, oh, I'm gonna code the like core mechanics, and then you have everything else around it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So how do you choose?
So in an ideal world, you
Yeah.
have 1 billion friends, and
Yeah.
each of them knows every aspect of game development, and you get to divide the work amongst everyone however they choose to work, right?
Yeah.
But in reality, you have 3 friends who all can draw and no one can program. So you end up going, I will program everything and you can just do the art,
Yeah.
right? That's
But I mean, if you want to work in a company, there's gonna be a lot of other people.
Absolutely,
So
yeah.
how do you choose? Like, oh, I want to work on this, and you would know that. Oh, I'm gonna like working on this. Like, how do you choose your field of work? You know what I mean?
yeah. So
Because people just think, oh, programming, it's fun. No, like
yeah. So choosing the actual field of work, like what
field
to
of work,
specialize
like what
in,
to specialize in.
it's very difficult because what I thought I would like, I
Yeah.
didn't really like,
Yeah.
and what I thought was lame.
But
I,
why didn't you like it? Is it because it's tedious, or do you think you could do better in like other?
I would start coding and then I would realize. So some things like AI.
Yeah.
By the time you get to a point where you're writing novel code that's legitimately yours, it felt like I was learning so much that was already established. And I was always writing things in suboptimal ways. There was always a better way that was there already. And I was just trying to kind of reinvent the wheel the entire time. And after I reinvent the wheel, I'm like, oh no, this is not the best way to do things. And I look it up and I find a better way. Someone wrote a PhD paper 25 years ago, and it's like, oh, that's the solution that everyone's using. I should use it too. So with some of those areas, it was just difficult to get to a point where I'm legitimately thinking about the problems I'm trying to solve. And that is what programming is. Programming is just trying to solve problems. They can be anything.
Yeah, but that's like the thing you liked. That's why you changed your field into
Yes.
something,
Yes.
so you can continue solving issues.
Yes.
Okay.
So it was just problem solving. I don't know if you know the meme, the I want problems always. That's
Yeah.
yeah, that's programmers.
Yeah,
We just want
definitely.
problems and we solve them.
Yeah.
Sometimes, like no matter what field of programming you're in, there will be established methods for solving things.
Yes.
That doesn't mean you need to use them, but it just means that there is something there depending on the type of problem you have.
Okay.
If optimization is not important, then it's fine. I can write the solution however I want. If optimization is important, I can start looking it up. But problems in programming tend to be very specific once you get to corporate level, once you get to a big company. The smaller team you have, the less you get to choose what to work on
Yeah.
because you have to do everything. The bigger the team is, the more specific your task is.
And it has to work with their code.
Yes, right? So you have to kind of balance a lot of responsibilities. In both cases, you have to balance a lot of responsibilities. And I guess I was lucky enough to work on both sides of the spectrum, both ends of the spectrum. After university, me and a group of friends, we decided to make a video game and to make it into an actual business, to try and make it into an actual business.
Nice.
Obviously, that didn't work because I'm not working there. But the graduation project we had was an idea from a friend who passed away, and he gave us this idea for a game that tries to have modern Kuwaiti culture in a video game. Growing up in Kuwait, we know about a lot of stereotypes, about a lot of like inside jokes, I guess, that we all understand, but that are never portrayed in media. Maybe they're portrayed in some skits online, like Shinuyani. They try to portray some of that, but no video games ever portrayed that.
Yeah, definitely.
So we wanted to try and get that in a video game, and
That would have been epic. So what?
It would have.
What would went wrong?
monetizing that idea to an audience as small as Kuwait only meant that we would have to get it in everyone's hands. Literally everyone. We're talking like the population here is what, 3 million,
But
three
the
and a half
thing
million?
is, Kuwaiti culture is popular in the like in the region, the Gulf region.
Sure.
So everyone in the region would be interested in that because they love Kuwaiti
it-
TV shows, and you know what I mean.
It could be, right?
could
But
be.
we were not sure about that. We knew that our core market is Kuwait. And
But I think Saudi would have been like a market as well.
it's possible.
Yeah.
But even if we're only targeting the Middle East,
Yes.
it's still a very limited market. When you
Okay.
look at big video games that try to make money, they always target everyone. You have to target everybody because not everyone plays video games. You lose a large chunk of the population. Like if we're thinking, okay, there's like 8 billion people on Earth.
But
We-
you know what? If you have made it and it would have been popular within like the Gulf region, then they can like adopt it as Kuwait for it to be a Kuwaiti culture. You know how CD Project Red started?
Yes.
They're literally using the Witcher
Yeah.
to like give to presidents, and
Yeah. I mean,
it could have been something like that. It would have been
it could have
rad.
been. I think the three genres that we ended up seeing in the Middle East was Clash of Clans clones, kind of themed after the Middle East. Those would kick off for a little bit, but for the most part, did not make a lot of money. Car games, racing, drifting, those made some money, but were still not very popular. And card games or tabletop games. We have a lot of card games. We have a lot of tabletop games that are popular within Kuwaiti culture, within the Middle East.
I think Coats.
Yes. So
okay. Yeah,
iCoat
that's right.
was probably the best
Biggest.
example we had, or the goal that we were trying to reach. But iCoat is a game that has every aspect that you would want for a game to be successful.
Exactly.
It can be
Anyone
played.
can learn it.
Yeah, it
They
can be
don't have
played
to be
an
here.
infinite number of times.
Yeah.
It can be played online. Any age group can play it. It's
Yeah.
on phones. You don't need a lot of graphics. The game we were trying to do was more like Streets of Rage. So, and because we're trying to insert a lot of Kuwaiti culture, we wanted the entire story to be tied to Kuwaiti culture, telling like a satirical story about a group of guys from modern Kuwaiti culture. And that meant that the game was probably only playable one time, unless you wanted to repeat and play the story again.
Exactly. Yeah.
So story-based games, unless it's very long, it's not going to be worth it. And with the limited resources we had, we could not make the game very long. We quickly realized that we would need to put the game on mobile. And putting the game on mobile meant figuring out control schemes. And this is a game that follows arcade-style controls. So putting that on mobile meant, crappy buttons on the screen. Didn't work very well. We didn't like it. And we needed to think about monetization. Skins. We don't want to have like greedy monetization. We didn't want to have people pay to play. So we thought about skins. We thought about cosmetic items. But we realized that we needed funding. And we had very limited time to finish this game. I mean, I needed to have a work visa here, so I needed to work, and I had just graduated. So we very quickly had to either come up with funding to start an actual company to develop this, or we call it quits and we find jobs. We could not secure funding, and to be fair, any funding company would look at us as fresh grads, then they would think that, yeah, I'm not very sure that you can turn my money into more money. So,
Exactly.
and now when I think about it, maybe that was for the best, because at some point we had to kind of butcher the original idea in order to make it something that can make money, when the idea really is more of a passion project.
Exactly. Yeah. But this is the thing. Why don't you go back to it as a like passion project?
We want to.
Okay.
We still talk about it all the time. It's just all of us
I think you
got
should
busy.
you should actually work on it.
Yeah, we really want to. I still have all the concept art. We still have some of the code. The code was crap. Every time I look back at my old code, Absolutely terrible.
You can improve it now. You have the like experience and everything.
I guess, yeah.
Yeah.
But we always talk about it. It's just we never have the time to give it the energy it needs, and we don't want to start it again and then quit because we get busy with life or something. So if we are to start it, we all want to give it some good amount of our time, what it deserves to be done, right? We don't want it to drag on and be like, yeah, it's 15 years in the making. Because with game development, a lot of people will be like, yeah, I'm working on a game, and then,
Yeah.
no, I don't want to finish it. And so we don't want to do that, because if we do that, I feel like it would be the last time we try to work on this game. If we are to work on it, I would like it if we were all kind of paying attention to it. And it's just that we got old. I mean, we got older, we're all busy with work, some of us have kids.
Like, yeah. I think you should consider going back to it.
Absolutely, yeah.
That really like makes me happy to hear that you were like thinking about making a game like this, because usually people don't think about like the culture they're putting into the game. They just think, oh, like a game to play or like something
Yeah.
fun to play.
Yeah.
Like if you think about the mechanics of it and everything,
uh,
and still the culture of it, that's
absolutely, yeah. I mean, Kuwaiti culture is very, like the inside jokes, the culture that we have here is kind of very intricate. You have to be really woven into it to understand everything going on and the evolution of certain stereotypes. And we really wanted to portray that because it's complex enough. And at the same time, we were also sick of the portrayal of Arabs in video games as camel riding,
Exactly.
you know, magic carpet, all of that kind of stuff. Because
yeah.
we relate to it almost as much as a European relates to it. We don't know that. Like, I don't know about you, but I didn't grow up with a magic carpet at home. So,
Same here.
I mean, I wish I did, but we kind of grew up just thinking, oh, that's how people see Arabs. But
Yeah.
we have so much more to
To offer.
yeah. And having that in a video game, even if it's not played by everyone, even if it's just appreciated by a small group of people, it would have been enough of an achievement, I think.
Oh, definitely. I think the other way I've seen like Arabs portrayed was like on I think Call of Duty.
Oh,
Was it?
yeah.
It's
So
either war or
yeah, that's how they see.
Unfortunately.
That's how they see us. Yeah.
Unfortunately.
To me, I think there's way more that we can put in video games to show what Arabs truly are like, rather
even
than
her
just
heritage was like always misportrayed. Like that's
absolutely.
not like
Like anytime Arabs are portrayed,
there's never a magic carpet.
it's yeah.
Never magic carpet.
It's never a good look for Arabs in video games for some reason. Anytime we're portrayed in media, it has to be historically what Arabs were like, or in modern times they would just pick some war or something that happened in the Middle East and portray that in video games, which I don't think is fair for the Middle East.
It's not.
We have a lot. We have enough that we wanted to make a video game about it.
Yes,
So,
exactly.
and that's just from
I
one
think
country.
that says a lot.
Yeah.
Since you had enough to like wanna make a game of it. I wanted to ask you about game jams. Have you ever participated in one? Have you ever like? What do you think about game jams in general?
So I think game jams are a fantastic way to try and get something up and running, because I've always struggled with trying to perfect everything about a video game rather than just get a taste of the different stages very quickly. It was always no, we have to perfect this before moving on to the next thing, and that's not a good way to learn, because
That actually kills the game.
exactly. So I never participated in game jams. I didn't know they existed here. We knew that some game jams existed online, but we thought we were better than game jams, and that was terrible. So, yeah, if I'm to give advice to anyone, participate in game jams.
Yeah.
Go to as many game jams as possible. You'll meet people. You'll meet people who will complement your skill set that
Exactly.
you could work with on projects outside of the game jam. The game jam will show you the fun side of game development. You're not necessarily making something to sell it. you're just making something.
And it's challenging as well because
Yep.
you have to come up with a game that fits the concept they have. So
Absolutely.
each game jam, there's like one concept that you have to revolve the whole game around it.
Yeah, yeah.
Which is like a nice challenge to
Yeah,
test your skill sets.
exactly. You
Yeah.
don't have to think about monetization. You don't have to think too much about the boring parts of game development, the more business side of game development, I guess. And you're just making something for fun, which is really, really important.
And a lot of games came out of game jams.
Yeah.
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 Which is
A lot of people meet at game jams and they start
and they
studios.
also like started their companies from game jams.
Yeah.
So
It's definitely a good way to meet people, to even people working in game companies. They participate in game jams, and it would be a good way for you to kind of show your skills
Network.
to people in those companies and possibly work in those companies.
exactly, it's like a networking kind of
Yeah,
event. Nice. But you should have participated in
I
that
should have.
next year.
We only saw one, I think, when we were working on the game, and it was at a Comic-Con or something like that.
IGN.
I don't remember, but it was like,
I think it was IGN. They did the convention here in Kuwait.
I think it was
and,
10 years ago.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, and it was, I mean, the game jam looked like a lot of fun, but yeah, we were already working on the game, and it's like we can't participate with this game because we have a lot of code already done for it.
But you know that they do like a game jam every January of every year.
In Kuwait.
The last weekend of every January. No, that's like a global game jam.
Oh, yeah.
Like global game jams. So everyone participates in it, and sometimes like some people do hold it here in Kuwait.
Yeah.
It's not an always thing.
I mean, it would be fun here in Kuwait, especially because,
But you can do it in North.
yeah, in Scotland. Yeah.
Scotland,
I mean, possibly.
You can join them.
The thing that was interesting for me in Kuwait was to find a group of people who wanted to do game development, and that was very difficult. Like I found people who really wanted to make games,
Yeah.
but were all just starting out, and they were kind of lost as to what the process is like, and eventually they would just either give up or move on or do something else.
It's true.
And I wish more people stuck with it because it's so much fun. Even if you never end up working professionally in video games, even if
Yeah.
you're just doing it on the side, it's a lot of fun.
Exactly.
I think I met some people in university who were trying to learn about game development, but one big mistake in game development is scope creep, where they were talking about having writers to write dialogue and stuff. They were talking about having artists, musicians, sound effect artists. Like they were trying to assemble the Avengers, and I'm like, you are all just starting out. Not to like be mean about your skill set, but it's not about just your skill set. You could be a genius, but if you never learn to work in a team, it's going to take some time.
Exactly.
And if you're talking about a team of 20 people,
But you see, the thing about game jam, you can actually meet those people.
yeah, absolutely.
So you can actually meet musicians and artists and writers, and then there's you who code.
Yeah, the game jam, the good thing about the game jam is that you're forced to finish everything in 2 days. So very quickly you learn that you can't overscope things. You can't go like, okay guys, we're going to make an MMO. You know, you just cannot. But outside of game jams, so in university, that group was all trying to like come up with a massive idea. And they asked me, because I think at the time I was a senior, I was about to graduate, and they asked me if I wanted to join. I said sure. And the first meeting they had, they were talking about the rights to selling the video game and soundtrack and like a bunch of other stuff. And I'm like, you guys are jumping like 50,000 steps ahead, you know. They,
Maybe because they had like a more of a business background or something like that.
I think the person leading the group had more of a business background.
Yeah, exactly. So they need to like establish this before starting the project.
Yeah, but
Which is like the business side of things, unfortunately.
yeah, but I mean, very quickly, it was apparent that everyone was just following that person's lead, and they didn't know better than to just be like, oh yeah, that sounds great. We're going to make a game that's going to make millions, and this is fantastic. But this is, I mean, this is not new advice. Everyone will tell you this. If you're starting in game development, make something small. Even if you're 20 people, try to make tic-tac-toe, try to make Snake, try to make any tiny game just to get a feel for working with other people.
Also fail a lot.
Yes.
Fail a lot. So you can learn more.
What was the saying? It was fail often and fail fast or something like that.
Something. So you can learn your mistakes, basically. That's like the goal of failing. It's not because we want you to fail. That's not it. Just like you need to learn your mistakes faster. Because if you're like too much down the road, it's harder to fix the mistakes you did in like the first, the initial phase. Basically.
Absolutely, yes. Take everything as a learning experience. Don't overestimate how complex this can be. We have entire industries with people who have decades of experience now in game development. So take your time with it. Make sure you learn the basics and make sure you enjoy learning the basics because it's a fun journey.
And it always goes down to the basics.
Always.
Always.
And definitely try to play more indie games. They will teach you how a game can be fun and very, very simple.
Exactly.
So one mistake I think a lot of people starting out do is they only play AAA games.
Yes.
Then they'll
they
just
try
be
to
like,
that would be their standards.
Yeah. They only think of video games as AAA video games, and they're like, if I'm going to make something, I'm going to make that. And I think that's a big mistake. Yeah, some people can achieve that, absolutely. But
yeah, you have help. I was just thinking, was it Help Please? Help. That's an indie game, but it looked like the AAA game.
Yeah, I mean,
was it Help Please or what was it called?
I'm not sure.
Was it? That was the game. That was the game, صح? I think so. It's an indie game. It's not like a AAA game.
Yeah.
But it looked like a AAA game.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, another good point is that not all indie is equal. So some indie studios will still be like 300 people.
Yeah.
It's just that they don't have a publisher. So they are independent. And some studios will just be one guy working on something for 10 years, like Stardew Valley.
Yeah.
Stardew Valley was mostly done by one person, and that took forever.
Yeah.
But I think, from what I remember, that person was making the game for fun. It wasn't like being a product to monetize or anything, because as a business, if you think about how much it costs to build that in 10 years, it's going to cost a lot of money.
Exactly.
Even for one person. Like, how much would you pay yourself per hour? And then you can calculate how much it would cost. Because time, I guess, is money.
It is.
So if you don't have a main job and you're just working on the side project, you're losing money. So either you have a loan or you have savings, but you're losing money. And unless the project you have can be sold as a product and make a lot of money, then it's not worth it. Which is, I mean, this goes against what I was just saying about game development should be fun. But this is why I always look at indie games that were not being developed to make a lot of money. They were being developed with passion. And that's how games in general started.
Like Stardew Valley, how much is it making?
Yeah, absolutely. Stardew Valley
still
made
selling,
millions, but it's because of the passion that was poured into it.
Exactly.
Pouring passion into games and not thinking about money is extremely important. I mean, I was talking earlier about the game we were trying to make and how at some point thinking about the monetization and making money killed the idea. At some point we looked at it and we're like, this is not the same as the original idea, where we had to monetize things, put ads everywhere, and it's like, We don't want this. And there's a problem where if you can't monetize your game properly, then it's not a game worth making. But this is not necessarily true. A lot of people will just make a game, put it up for $1, $2, whatever it is, and they will learn about what people like and what they don't like. And a lot of indie developers will, instead of trying to cater to what people like in order to sell more, they will just see how they can adjust maybe their passion and pull out something from what they're interested in order to make something that sells.
Yeah, like Stardew Valley.
Exactly. So you can still make games that no one's interested in, but and no one will buy, and you're putting a lot of passion into them, and that's fine. That's absolutely fine. But adjust your expectations. Like, not every game is going to make $1 million, and that's okay.
Yeah, but there's another like point. The platform you release your game on, like if you're going to make a game, I feel like there's like a different audience. The people who play mobile games expect like a very different, or want to play very different games than the ones who play on PC, than the ones who play on PlayStation, than the ones who play on like Nintendo.
Yeah, like, absolutely.
It's very different. So
absolutely.
How do you choose that? Like, you chose to monetize, for example, you chose to monetize your game, like thinking about it, I mean.
Yeah.
But if you were to put it in a platform like Nintendo, you wouldn't need to monetize it. You just sell it for like a price, and that's it.
Absolutely.
You can add DLCs later on, but like you don't need to monetize it.
Yeah. So it's
so why did you choose it?
So the main reason we wanted to monetize the game by putting it on mobile was exposure to as many people as possible. Okay. Everyone has a phone, everyone has a smartphone. Not everyone has a PlayStation or a PC or a Switch or whatever, right?
Yes.
So, but that should not be the final, the kind of this, what tells you where you should publish your game. Like you said, there are different audiences. So when you're talking about the Switch, it's very family oriented. The games on it tend to not be very violent. You can still have violent games on the Switch, but in general, it's not the same as the PlayStation and the Xbox.
Exactly.
Steam, you get everything. You have an audience of hardcore fans of just about every single game, because Steam was the only store for video games on PC. You have GOG, and that's for older games that they somehow managed to dig up and revive and put up for sale. You have the Epic Game Store, which now they have a mobile one as well, and the Epic Game Store is trying to compete with Steam on every level. One thing about Epic is that they own a lot of the games that are very popular on their platform. So they own Rocket League, which became an Epic Store exclusive.
Yes.
They own Fortnite, obviously, right? So a lot of the money is coming from these few games, and those games usually end up being a live service game. Steam has a slightly different model. Steam is more like you can publish and sell whatever you want, and it's still very old school in the way it kind of monetizes itself.
Yeah.
You put up a game for a set price and you make money. That's it. Obviously, there are still live service games on Steam. That's fine. But
like, how do you choose your market? Now you have the game idea, and then how do you choose your market?
All right. So the I think one main issue with choice is that you don't have a lot of it initially. As an indie developer, especially if you don't have a company, you don't have a concept or a demo, you will need to basically beg PlayStation, Xbox, and Nintendo for a dev kit, especially if they had just come out. Later on, they tend to kind of ease up and just be like, yeah, we want more developers because no one's developing for these consoles. But early on, they're more protective over their dev kits. There are a lot of indie developers out there as well, so they can give it to the more established indie developers. You have any indie developer that's made a game that was successful in the previous generation usually will get a dev kit for free from Sony or Xbox. So initially, if you're just starting out, you don't have a lot of choice. You have PC and Steam. You have mobile. The process on mobile is pretty straightforward. The process on Steam is also kind of straightforward.
Why doesn't anyone go to arcade?
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So, arcade games, they have specialized hardware usually. I mean, we do have arcade machines that are running like a Raspberry Pi or some
Yeah.
kind of weak computer inside that's just running an emulator and running a bunch of games. That's the kind of stuff I see in arcades nowadays.
Yes.
I'm not even sure if that's legal, but
Let's say you want to make a game and on a Raspberry Pi.
for a Raspberry Pi.
No, for like an arcade. To make an arcade, but you have like a Raspberry Pi kind of device.
So,
And
if-
you want to develop your game, but put it specifically
for arcades.
arcades.
So the thing about arcades is you're either emulating older games or you are creating specialized hardware to play your game. This is not something you see in most places, but in countries like Japan, you will find kind of rhythm games will have very specialized controls.
Exactly.
It's kind of like when Dance Dance Revolution first came out,
Yeah.
right? You have very
Just Dance.
specialized controls
Yeah.
that are difficult to kind of put at home or use a controller for. So that's the thing about arcade machines, is that they were the way we played games in the 80s and 90s, but very quickly that shifted to home consoles. And now we prefer home consoles and standard controls over having to go to the arcade and repeatedly just playing a game I don't own, right? But for arcade machines right now, if you wanted to put your game on an arcade machine, I don't think it's very possible, unless your arcade machine is something that's running a PC. Then I mean, it can just run that, and you can hook up all the controls just fine. There are large fan bases who write APIs for interfacing with custom controls and stuff. You can easily build it to have arcade sticks underneath, and it still plays fine, right? But if you want to build specialized controls, unless you have a lot of money, you're not going to be able to do that. It's only very, very big companies that are able to build those arcade machines, and they need to know their market very well to know the concentration of players who would play that, because you can't manufacture a billion of them.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly. This is what I'm talking about. Like,
Yeah.
let's say you're an indie developer and you want to make an arcade for Kuwait, the Kuwaiti game, to put it in like something like what's it called, the Magic Planet or
Sure.
whatever.
I mean,
You can do your game and just put it in Magic Planet and people can play it there. You know what I mean?
So the way I would approach that is by making the game,
Yeah.
putting it somewhere like mobile, Steam, whatever it is, and then with some of the money that I get, I would put it in one of those places as an arcade machine. Because the arcade machine is probably not going to generate a lot of money, but it's going to serve as good marketing, right? Especially that we're talking about one place with an arcade machine is not going to give
No,
me
I
a
mean
lot.
like there are a lot of places for like gaming for kids.
Even
You know
if
what
it's
I mean?
10 or 11 or 20,
Yeah.
it's still not going to generate a lot, because we have to keep in mind how much it would cost to play one run of the game. And we need replayability. We need people to
it's,
keep coming back.
How much does it cost actually?
I mean,
I think it's 1 KD now.
when I
or
played as a
something.
kid, it was
It's like 100
fils.
fils. Yeah, but like
So-
now it's not 100 fils anymore.
Yeah, and I don't know what the cut is in terms of the place and the
place,
game,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
I don't know if they just buy the arcade machines like in one go and they just own it now. I have no idea what the deal is. But yeah, I'm not sure about monetization using arcade machines is an interesting one, but I think
Yeah.
it's more of a novelty than a way to actually generate money.
Oh, okay.
I think I've seen in like Gamescom and stuff like that, some games will put their games on an arcade machine and have people play. but it's more of like a marketing stunt because you can assemble arcade machines now out
Exactly,
of parts
yeah.
you buy, and it's totally fine. But it's not something that you're selling to people unless you have money. You're not going to buy an entire arcade machine for one game.
Yeah.
Most people buy it, and it has the capabilities to run anything, right?
Exactly. Exactly. Okay. Well, what about your upcoming projects, and what advice do you give for like the newcomers, new developers?
Don't quit. Definitely don't quit on game development. It's difficult, but it's a lot of fun. And don't think about money too much. Don't kill the passion with money. It does not have to be about the money. Try to attend events. Game development does not have to be just one person at a computer trying to make a game by themselves. Try to attend events, game jams. Try to find like-minded people. Try to meet people in person. And try to make it a social experience. Game development is such a massive area that just about every creative expression we've developed as human beings can be put into game development. And they're just fantastic for portraying stories, for testing out ideas, for whatever you have. I mean, we all grew up with video games. I don't think I'm giving any advice to 70-year-olds, but if you are, you should also get into video game development. And yeah, I mean, if I were to do it all over again, I would probably try to be less serious about it. Just take it easy, try to meet people, try to fail a lot.
Yeah.
Yep.
Exactly. Yes. Well, thank you for your time. Thank you for joining our show.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank
Thanks
you
for having me. All right.
Thank you.